Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and what a delight to have in the studio with us today Ben McReynolds, and he is heading up the Knox Classical Academy coming to Southern Oregon. Actually, it doesn't start till a year from now, but all the introduction and some of the fundraising is going on now. We want to learn more about it. Ben, good to see you. How you doing, friend?
Thank you, Perry. It's good to be here. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. Well, listen, how'd this come about?
Well, my wife and I started a family. And my wife has her master's in teaching, so education's not something I really thought much about other than, my own education. But when we started having kids, my wife took it very seriously and began to do a lot of research. Obviously, we have some wonderful options in the area, but as she was researching, she came across a classical Christian school in Roseburg called Geneva Academy that sort of developed some excitement, and her and a friend went and visited that school and came back very excited. So once we came to understand classical Christian education a little bit better and began to perceive it as an option for our kids, we really jumped on it.
So what is classical Christian education? How would you describe it?
It is an attempt to reach back into a type of education that has been abandoned for about 150 years now. Very officially on a state level abandoned in the early 1900s, but even prior to that, people began to let go of it. It's a study of Latin, an observance of the trivium, which is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. The pursuit of classical education is quite different than education today. It's a very humanist in that the pursuit is truth, goodness, and beauty, which is logos, pathos, and ethos in Greek. So it reaches back into the Greco-Roman era, things that the Greeks were thinking of that they were very passionate about. Even the pagan Greeks believed in creation, and they attributed it to pagan gods, but they believed in gods. They talked about gods, and it was in that context that the New Testament was written. The Apostle Paul in particular was very, very highly educated, and he could describe New Testament theology and doctrine in the context of a classical understanding of thought in a way that was very, very strong and is how our New Testament is written.
Very structured curriculum, very structured everyday activity. Now this is being proposed to launch next year.
Yes, September 2017.
Okay, and what grades will you be covering then?
Just kindergarten through second grade when we first start.
Okay, and your goal is to what?
12th grade.
All the way up to 12. All right, so you got a fundraiser tonight.
We do.
What is that?
Well, we're introducing John Knox to our audience. We've named the school after John Knox, and he's not a character that everybody knows real well. People recognize his name. They know he was a reformer. He was a Scot, and we wanted to introduce him in the form of an original little 30-minute musical. So we'll be doing that. The headmaster from the school in Roseburg from Geneva Academy will be there tonight also to describe his experience as a headmaster for a classical Christian school. Then we'll have a silent auction and some refreshments. So.
All right. When and where?
We're hosting it at Trinity Presbyterian Church, which is at 100 Windsor Avenue. Okay. And it's at 6:30 this evening.
Okay. By the way, there is a website available now. It's called knoxclassicalacademy.com.
Yes.
knoxclassicalacademy.com. All right. So are the biblical principles integrated into this curriculum? How do you do that?
Well, like I say, the New Testament was written during the Greco-Roman era that was very, very consumed with, if you read some of the Greek philosophers, very consumed with this concept of the logos, and which is this foundational truth underneath all knowledge. They believed that there was something there that made knowledge relevant, that made knowledge consistent and worth pursuing. And they had a very humanist perspective on that, in that it was something very special about humanity to pursue the logos. And so they would, you'd read Plato, and they'd grapple back and forth, and arts of debate were big. And so, the Apostle John, when he wrote his gospel, he made it very clear that the logos was Christ, and that the logos was the Word. And so he put that concept into Scripture in a very easy to understand way for that era of time. We live in an era of time where logos is completely gone.
Well, I was going to say, we've seen attempts of logos being put back into more of a secular, new agey type environment.
And in many ways, the concept of some sort of absolute truth is scrapped, especially in the academic field. People consider truth to be very relative. They consider goodness, ethics to be totally different from person to person, and they also consider beauty to be in the eye of the beholder. That's, nobody has a grasp on beauty. Nothing is perceived as absolute. But in the classical mind, in the classical pursuit of education, all three of those things are absolutes. Doesn't mean anybody has their full grasp of it. There's still a matter of debate, but we all come to the table believing that truth is absolute, goodness, ethics are absolute, and that beauty itself is absolute.
And from your perspective, it's all found biblically. Yes,
we use the scripture. I've heard it described as when you go outside to look at the sun. You want to appreciate what you want to appreciate light. So you go outside. You don't go outside and gaze at the sun.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd kill you. But you do go out and appreciate the myriad of colors and just the beauty of creation that light brings to us. And in the same way, when we approach knowledge and we approach academia, we approach education with a belief that Scripture is the light, then we actually perceive Scripture as something that casts light upon all fields of learning, and so we will be using Scripture in every class.
Why Latin?
Because it's very foundational to Western civilization. Until 200 years ago, scholars were still writing a lot of their works in Latin with the perception that Latin would be used.
Right.
And I think the more we have let go of that, I mean, there are students who visit Washington, D.C. and see the Declaration of Independence written in cursive and think that it's a foreign language. Because, people have completely let go of a lot of what used to be common knowledge. So we want our students to understand Latin. It'll help them in pursuit of a lot of foreign languages, any Latin romantic language, as well as just understanding English.
Again, it's called Knox Classical Academy, and you can go to knoxclassicalacademy.com. All of this will be starting up a year from now, but some of the exposure and getting the information out and the marketing of it, and even a fundraiser tonight there at Trinity Presbyterian Church. There's a brochure, and I'm sure when you go online they can send this to you and take a look at it. You have plenty of those. There we are. I'm holding it up for you. Where does technology come in? Because I mean, it's very much of our culture today. How do you mix classical and technology?
Probably carefully. Yeah, our students will spend a lot of time in classical literature, and most likely they won't be doing that on a Kindle, but they might. Yeah. But yeah, we won't be integrating a whole lot of technology into their education probably until they hit junior high and high school. Obviously, parents at home can work with their kids on the laptop or on the tablet or whatever, but.
Well, I think there's a real hunger for structure for kids, for parents saying, what are they learning? What can they learn? What is it all about? I understand you're actually going to have uniforms, and that's part of it, too. What else in the classical, do you get into classical music and the history behind classical music?
Oh, yeah. It'll certainly be a part of our study of history as well as our study of music and our understanding of beauty in music.
Wow. All right, so let's fast forward. You're up through 12th grade. What do you want a student to graduate with? I mean, what will that student look like that comes out of 12 years of this?
The tools of learning. We want them to graduate with the tools of learning in their belt, so they don't necessarily have to rack up $100,000 of debt in order to get a job. When they graduate from our school, they'll have a good handle on formal logic. They'll have a good handle on rhetoric. They'll be comfortable with their own voice. They'll be comfortable with communicating. They'll be able to, I would say, they'll be able to excel in any direction they want to move, including college. They'll do fine in college for those who want to move on to college. But we really want our graduates to be ready to move into life and succeed in whatever.
Well, fascinating. Let me encourage you, go to knoxclassicalacademy.com, and they'll send you one of these brochures. Now, this will all start next year, kindergarten through 2nd grade, so that's kind of the beginning of the process, and then it'll develop from there. I commend you in your long-range forecasting and dreaming and structure here. It's all built upon John Knox. If you don't know who he is, you may want to attend tonight.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, 6:30, Trinity Presbyterian Church. Tickets $15, $20 at the door. And learn more about it, especially if you have young ones coming up. This is a great opportunity. So what do you do with a kindergarten person? What do you do at that beginning stage? What's their day look like?
Oh, goodness. The trivium, separated in grammar, logic, and rhetoric, as we observe it in the classical Christian school, we'll be separating that out into certain stages of a child's development. So the first 6-7 years of their life, we tackle the grammar stage, which is mainly just a boatload of memorization. They're learning facts and rules that will pertain to all of the subjects that they'll be studying throughout their high school, junior high years, but it's fun during that season of life. So they're going to be learning a lot of information through chants, through rhymes, through songs, through games. They'll be getting comfortable with their own voice, so they'll be speaking together in groups, as well as be speaking alone and listening to each other go around, usually just saying a certain piece of information, that separating, for instance, the presidents in order, and then the kids will each have a president, and they'll say the name, and so they'll get used to hearing their own voice, get used to listening to other people. They'll get used to being quiet or sitting in a chair or fidgeting or whatever.
Being quiet.
And,
unplugged.
So it'll be a lot of fun, but the goal will be to help them start to perceive themselves as successful in learning.
All right. Well, let me encourage you again, Knox, that's K-N-O-X, classicalacademy.com. Get the brochure, and if you're available tonight, run over to Trinity Presbyterian Church. It starts at 6:30. You'll learn a lot about John Knox and a whole lot about the Academy as it comes to fruition. Ben, thank you.
Thank you, Perry. I really appreciate it.
Keep us updated, okay?
I certainly will.
All right, we'll be right back.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at thedove.us.